Well, thank you for coming along today. I love this event. It's always a really good event to do a talk at. I've been doing talks here now for the last 3 years. I need to move that way a bit. You might need to turn the camera a bit there. So I've been doing talks here for the last 3 years, and it's always really good to see people. I think this is one of the best events of the year in terms of being a grassroots animal rights vegan event. For those of you that don't know me, that's me. My name's Mark. Come on in. Go ahead. You looking for the Sea Shepherd talk?
Sorry, no, I've left the book up there.
Oh, that's all right. No worries. Carry on. Carry on.
I'm not lying around, sorry.
Is it any good?
Yeah. Oh, it is. Thank you.
So my name's Mark. I'm a senior volunteer with Sea Shepherd. I haven't been with Sea Shepherd that long. I've been with Sea Shepherd about 4 years now. I've been on a few campaigns. I've been to Taiji in Japan a couple of times, and I've been to on the seal campaign that we did in Scotland, which I'll briefly touch on today. And also I've been to the Faroe Islands, where they hunt for pilot whales. Some of you may know about that campaign. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Sea Shepherd and just a brief intro, because it's very difficult at an event like this to know how much people know already about Sea Shepherd, because some events we do, everybody knows everything. Some events we do, nobody knows anything. At an event like this, it's probably a bit of a mix. So I'm not going to spend too long on the history of Sea Shepherd. We've got a stall downstairs. You can come and talk to us if you want to find out any more. I'm going to talk about a couple of campaigns that we've run in the last 2 months. Those of you who do know Sea Shepherd will know very much about the campaigns that we do in the Antarctic to protect whales, and the campaigns that we do in Taiji in Japan, where we expose the dolphin slaughters there, and perhaps you might know about the Faroe Islands campaign. But actually there's an awful lot more to Sea Shepherd than that, and so I'm going to touch on a couple of campaigns that probably most of you won't know about. Some of you may, and a couple of volunteers here who will know. I'm going to introduce Ocean Warrior to you. Ocean Warrior is our very latest ship, so I'm just going to touch on that briefly. And then at the end of it, which will probably be in about 45 minutes or so, maybe 50 minutes, I'll be happy to take any questions that you've got relating to Sea Shepherd or the oceans or anything. So, not anything, obviously, not my personal life, that's off limits. You're right, do you want to come in? Come on in. I've only just started, you've only just missed the end. That's all right. I think we may be out of seats, so you might have to just sort of squash up at the back there. Yeah, so that's the plan for the talk. So who are Sea Shepherd? Right, well, for those of you who don't know, we're just coming up to our 40th anniversary. We were founded in 1977 by a chap called Paul Watson, who was one of the original founding members of Greenpeace. So he was the 8th founding member with the membership number 007, and that was in 1971. In 1975 he was basically ejected from Greenpeace because his views were seen very much as being too direct and a bit too antagonistic. Greenpeace was based very much on a pacifist approach, and Paul is anything but. So we are an organisation that is focused purely on marine wildlife and habitat conservation. Okay, our sole aim is to protect the oceans for the planet's future. When I've got a quote that I'm going to show you now from Paul that comes from some time ago, but I think it really gives you a clear idea of what he was intending when he set this organisation up. It's got a little bit of music to it, so hopefully this works. It would do if I put the speaker on. Okay, read it anyway without the music. And that's kind of the sort of, I suppose, the core ethos of what Paul intended when he set Sea Shepherd up back in 1977. And we're not out to piss everybody off. We don't want to piss you guys off or anyone, but the people that we want to piss off are the people that are harming the oceans. if I was going to put that into something a bit more formal, I'll show you what our mission statement is. And our mission statement is to end the destruction of habitat and slaughter of wildlife in the world's oceans to conserve and protect ecosystems and species. So that is a formal way of saying what Paul was meaning, but what he said really gives you an idea of how we go about doing what we do. So who are these people that we intend to piss off? These are the main targets that we aim at, okay? This is not a comprehensive list, but these are the sort of headlines under which we operate. So our targets are people who conduct illegal whaling, commercial overfishing, which I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail, which I consider to be the biggest threat to the oceans as we stand. Shark poaching and shark finning, I'm sure you know about that. Seal land hunting and culling, that was where we started in fact. Sea Shepherd started by campaigning against the Canadian seal cull back in the 70s. Cetacean drive hunting, for those of you who don't know what that is, cetaceans are obviously whales and dolphins. Drive hunting is a method of driving pods of dolphins, but normally dolphins, into either a cove or a beach, where they're then mostly slaughtered, sometimes selected for a life in captivity. And marine wildlife poaching. Come on in. Marine wildlife poaching is what it is. We have campaigns running in areas like the Galapagos Islands where we use sniffer dogs, which we've trained up and given to the government of Galapagos to stop them from, to find people who are poaching wildlife. In the words of Peter Hammerstedt, who's one of our captains, we never back down and we never compromise. And again, that is the ethos of it. We are a direct action group, okay? There are lots of marine conservation organisations out there who are doing fantastic work, and many of them are involved in campaigning and lobbying and seeking to get laws changed, all of which is very, very important work, and we would never dismiss what they're doing. While they are doing that, somebody has to take direct action to stop the animals from being killed today, now. So what we're doing is very much like the hunt sabs, and we call ourselves the hunt sabs of the sea. We're actually going out and protecting wildlife while other organisations are doing what I call the long game, which is that political lobbying and striving to get laws changed, etc. So I'm going to run through a little bit of the history now. Some of the things that we've done in the last 40 years. This is very, very much a concise history, which is only going to take a few minutes. There is an awful lot more that we've done that you can learn about from the internet and by looking at videos and films that have been made about us. Over the years, we have been responsible for closing down some of the biggest threats to the oceans. In 1980, we were responsible for ending whaling by European countries when we sank the most rampant illegal whaling vessel, the Sierra. And subsequently, many other illegal ships were sunk. Here's some of them listed on the sides of one of our ships there. And two of those ships, the Havler 6 and Havler 7, these ships were sunk in November 1986. Two Sea Shepherd engineers, David Hewitt and Rod Coronado, sabotaged Iceland's only whale processing station. They used sledgehammers, wrenches and other tools, and they systematically destroyed the computers, power generators, machinery, and smashed all the windows of the only whale processing centre in Iceland. The large refrigeration units that we used to freeze the season's catch were destroyed beyond repair, and all the documentation was spoiled by acid that we doused on it. The main factory and two smaller buildings were left completely inoperable. They then went back to Reykjavik harbour, where they sank two of the four Icelandic whaling ships. If you're wondering why the other two weren't sunk, it was because there were crew on board at the time. And one of the things that Sea Shepherds is very strict about is that we have no intention of harming anybody. So when we realised there were two crew on the other ship, we left those alone. These two were empty and we sank them. This action effectively crippled Iceland's whaling for over 20 years. They are now whaling again on a very small scale, but they were unable to do any whaling for over 20 years. I mentioned earlier about the Canadian seal cull. We had a massive impact on that cull. I mean, we're talking about the culling of millions and millions of baby seals. And in the early days, Captain Watson and others risked their lives to go onto the ice in Labrador to spray a harmless dye onto the seal pelts so that the seals became worthless, the pelts became worthless, there was no point in them being clubbed. He also handcuffed himself to a pile of seal pelts and was dragged across the ice, hauled up onto a ship. He'd already broken several ribs, he'd been underwater for some time, and he was pulled up onto the sealer's ship and beaten within an inch of his life. More recently, on the subject of seals, we've brought an end to the shooting of seals in the UK. We ran a campaign in Scotland, sorry, not in the UK, in Scotland. Sea Shepherd UK ran a campaign which resulted in the banning of this practice for a minimum of 3 years. However, it is widely held view that our actions over the last sort of 2 or 3 years have basically rendered that industry, the salmon netting industry, we have rendered it completely inviable. So again, more action relating to seals. Our volunteers have risked their lives and their liberty bringing the issue of pilot whale hunting in the Faroe Islands and dolphin hunting in Japan to the world's attention. Many of you will know about our Cove Guardian campaign, which is running right now. That campaign is actually being led by one of Sea Shepherd UK's own volunteers, one of our trustees, Jessie, who is actually one of our captains as well, has been captaining the Bridget Bardot. We have saved the lives of tens of thousands of turtles from poachers in Costa Rica and Honduras. We've protected turtles from commerce and industry in Florida, and we're continually seeking to protect sea turtles, of which 6 of the 7 species of sea turtles are now in danger of becoming extinct. So that's Sea Shepherd in a very, very, very small nutshell, and there is so much more to this organisation, and I could talk about the history and some of the campaigns. I could talk to you all day. You'd be late for work tomorrow. Obviously I haven't got time for that, so please just do look into what we've done over the last 40 years and learn about the successes that we've had and the thousands and thousands of lives that we've saved. So as I said at the start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk now about 2 of the campaigns that we've run in the last 12 months. And these are campaigns that, if you're an ardent follower of Sea Shepherd, you may well have heard of. If you're a casual follower, you likely haven't. And that's why I want to sort of talk to you about these. I want you to see that it's more than just seals, whales and dolphins. As I've sort of hinted at, Sea Shepherd is often seen as very much a rebel organisation that works fights against government and has very little respect for authority. And there's an element of that is certainly true, but in actual fact, recent campaigns that we've run both in sort of Senegal and Galapagos and so on show that we're actually at our best when we're assisting governments with the reinforcement of their own laws and international laws that protect wildlife. And the first campaign, if I can find my mouse, that I want to talk to you about, took place off the west coast of Africa, off a country called Gabon. Gabon controls a fishing area of around about 200,000 square kilometres, which is very rich in biodiversity, and it's an area that supplies 20% of the global catch of tuna. And as a result, it's a haven for illegal fishing vessels, and it was these vessels that this Operation Albacore, was very much focused on. So the aim of this operation was to assist the government of Gabon and latterly the governments of Sao Principe and Tomé, which joined in the campaign later on, in tackling what we call IUU fishing. And IUU is illegal, unregistered and unlisted fishing vessels. So throughout the 2016 tuna fishing season, Gabonese Marines and officers with the Fisheries Enforcement Agency were stationed on board our ship, working alongside our volunteers to patrol Gabon's sovereign waters. These patrols provided a vehicle for law enforcement to defend, conserve and protect the critical tuna habitat in Central West Africa from April through to September. of the global catch annually of fish, 40% of it is estimated to be caught by these IUU vessels. And 90% of that fishing is done in coastal waters that fall under the authority of a coastal state. But what we see is very complicated systems of transboundaries, where you might have fishing vessels registered in one place, fishing in another, dumping their load in another, and thereby sort of getting around the rules. And we often find that these coastal states just really don't have the resources to deal with this, and that's where Sea Shepherd has come in. Someone who can explain this far better than I can is Captain Hammerstead, who I showed you a picture of earlier. He is the captain of the Bob Barker that was actually on this mission. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a 3-minute video which was released before the operation, in which he explains exactly what it was we were trying to do. So hopefully you can all hear this okay. If it works.
Operation Albacore is an exciting new campaign for Sea Shepherd, where we will be working together with the Navy and with the Fisheries Enforcement Agency of the country of Gabon to both enforce the law against illegal fishing operators, but also to ensure compliance with legal operators. One of the biggest challenges facing Gabon for enforcing its own fisheries laws is that they currently don't have the ability to cover their entire economic waters. And therefore, the introduction of a civilian offshore patrol vessel, in this case the Albacore, will allow the Gabonese Navy for the first time to cover their entire waters. For a period of 6 months, spanning the entire tuna season for Gabon, Sea Shepherd will be working together with the Gabonese Navy and together with the Gabonese Fisheries Enforcement Agency to patrol Gabon's territorial sea and Gabon's economic waters. During the 110-day epic chase of the poaching vessel Thunder, Sea Shepherd received a lot of support from different coastal states, and certainly Gabon stands out above the rest. It was the Gabonese Navy that was willing to actually come out and arrest the Thunder should it enter Gabonese waters. The Gulf of Guinea has some of the richest tuna waters in the world, and because tuna are a migratory species, a regional cooperation and international cooperation is absolutely necessary to protect that species from overfishing. Sea Shepherd's presence in Gabon will allow Gabon to become a regional leader in how tuna fisheries are managed, and Gabon will basically be able to make legal operators accountable for their fishing operations in Gabonese waters for the first time in history. One of the biggest problems with IUU fishing in the Gulf of Guinea is the complicated system of transboundaries. A fishing vessel will be licensed to fish by Sao Tome and Principe. It will be flagged to Equatorial Guinea. It will fish illegally in Gabon, and then it will offload its illicit catch in Ghana. So to tackle fisheries crimes, regional cooperation is required. Global solutions are needed. And where Sea Shepherd can assist is by actually bringing boots on the ground to bring operational capabilities in the form of a civilian patrol vessel to a country like Gabon that really wants to address the issue of IUU fishing. One of the biggest issues facing the world's oceans is overfishing, and when 15 to 40% of the global catch of fish is caught by illegal, unreported, and unregulated operators, and when 90% of the global catch of fish is caught in the waters of some coastal state, then it's absolutely paramount for Sea Shepherd to work together with different governments that may lack the adequate resources to enforce the law in their waters, to actually bring IUU operators to accountability and to bring them to justice.
So hopefully that gives you, Peter's given you an idea, and then hopefully you could hear it okay, of what our intention was when we set out earlier in the year, back in March, on this campaign in Gabon. So how did it go? Well, there's an awful lot happened, and it'd be very difficult for me to explain everything that we did out there. But what I want to do is just give you an example of how successful this campaign was. So on the 6th of August, the Spanish longline fishing vessel, the Alamar Primero, was boarded in waters belonging to the Central African island of Sao Tome and Principe. It was boarded by Sao Tomean authorities, assisted by the Sea Shepherd crew and law enforcement officers from Gabon. Now, this vessel had been licensed to fish for tuna and similar species, but inspections revealed that their fish holds were filled with sharks, predominantly blue sharks that are classified by the IUCN as near threatened. Many of the sharks' fins had already been removed, which is a violation of European Union fishing ban, which requires that sharks be landed with their fins naturally attached. A special advisor to the Gabonese president was quoted as saying, "There must have been at least 20 tons and not a single tuna was on this vessel. This boat had been illegally massacring sharks in contradiction with its license and against EU regulations." In this picture here, you can see floor-to-ceiling shark carcasses with detached fins. You can see some of the fins down here at the bottom, and this is in frozen storage. Again, another image from this vessel. These are all shark carcasses littering the deck. This is, bear in mind, this is a tuna fish operator. Here we've got a decapitated blue shark with the wire trace still attached to it. And this is an unborn blue shark removed from one of the carcasses. Sao Tomean authorities ordered this longliner to retrieve their fishing gear, release their catch and proceed to Sao Tome for investigation. We put 4 Gabonese Marines onto the ship, and Bob Barker, our ship, escorted it to Sao Tome. And on the 7th of August, it arrived in the fishing village of Neves, where it was detained indefinitely. The crew were arrested and fined, and the operators had their licence removed. And this is a very short and quick example of the effectiveness of this campaign and how Sea Shepherd is able to use its 40 years of experience pursuing vessels in some of the wildest places to assist governments in this quest to end illegal fishing once and for all, which is, an absolutely massive task. One of the major problems, and there are lots of problems facing the oceans today, is the level of bycatch that takes place. This is the amount of non-targeted species that are caught in nets by longliners and trawlers. Here you can see we've got one of the great whales caught in a purse seine fishing net, which was probably intended simply to catch tuna. And the next campaign I'm going to talk to you about is very much about reducing bycatch by these drift nets, purse seines and longliners. But before I talk about Operation Driftnet, I'd just like to show you a video from this campaign, Operation Albacore, which clearly demonstrates the problem of bycatch. And this is taken on just one of the vessels that were investigated during this campaign. Now, this is the video that I mentioned at the beginning, is by Sea Shepherd standards mildly graphic, so I will just warn you of that. But as I say, this is just one vessel that we boarded that shows the real problem of bycatch. This was another tuna fishing vessel. Please. So just bear in mind that's just one out of many, many thousands of ships that are out there fishing for other species, and these are the non-targeted species that are being killed day in and day out. And that's, bear in mind, sharks have been around for nearly 500 million years. They predate dinosaurs, they outlasted the dinosaurs. And does anybody know how many sharks are killed every year by humans? Anybody have any idea? Way more than that, yeah. Every year we are killing 100 million sharks, primarily for shark fin soup, but also obviously in cases like this with bycatch. And it's not just sharks, you know, it's turtles, it's dolphins, it's porpoises, it's whales. So that's one of the sort of things I want to talk about next. Really is the second campaign that I wanted to talk to you about. Some of you may know about Operation Icefish, which was an Antarctic campaign that happened last season when the Japanese didn't go whaling. So we sent a crew down there to stop a fishing fleet that was catching the Antarctic toothfish, which you would otherwise know as Chilean sea bass, which is an endangered species. And in January of 2016, while we're down there coming back from that campaign, patrolling the South Indian Ocean, the Steve Irwin, one of our ships, came across numerous small targets on its radar. So what we did was we dispatched our ribs, our rigid inflatable boats, and they found this fleet of ships and identified them as a fleet of Chinese illegal fishing vessels called the Fu Yuan Yu fleet. And over the course of 3 days we shadowed this fleet and we monitored and recorded the activities of them, and we determined very quickly that these ships were fishing with large-scale drift nets. I'm going to explain in a minute what a drift net is. So what we did was, after reviewing this footage, and identifying that they were in violation of basically a minimum of 11 international regulations, we handed that footage over to the authorities, and we decided actually that after we'd had a short break, we would send the Steve Irwin back to the Indian Ocean to pursue this fleet and try to have them shut down for good. So we launched. Working, yes. We launched Operation Driftnet, and that was started in February of this year. So what I'm going to do now is just very quickly explain what drift nets are for those of you that don't know. Drift nets are defined as nets whose purpose is to enmesh, entrap or entangle fish by drifting along the surface of the ocean. They were used extensively in the last century. Literally thousands and thousands of these nets were used in the last century, and it became very, very quickly apparent that these nets are completely indiscriminate. So it's impossible to target the species that you are fishing for, and they're responsible for killing all sorts of creatures, wildlife basically. So as a result of this, in 1992, the United Nations completely banned the use of drift nets on the high seas. Thousands of whales, dolphins and porpoises die in illegal drift nets annually. For cetaceans who need to surface in order to breathe oxygen, entanglement in these nets causes them to die from a very slow suffocation just meters from the surface of the water. And obviously other animals such as seals, sea lions, birds and turtles are increasingly impacted by not just these drift nets but other fishing gear that's left out there, what we call ghost nets. As I say, due to them being non-selective, they are responsible for massive amounts of bycatch, non-targeted fish. So while these fishermen might be out there targeting swordfish or tuna, they're catching even more of the other stuff, the cetaceans and the sharks and the turtles, etc. When the weather turns really bad, these drift nets become unmanageable and they're often discarded. And what happens is they just sink slowly to the bottom of the oceans, and those are what we call ghost nets, and we've got other campaigns as well to retrieve as many of these ghost nets